All right, welcome to Nathaneal Podcast. Today we have Kary Oberbrunner. Thank you
Yes.
for hopping in, Kary.
Hey, it's great to be here. I've been impressed with all your stuff on Twitter. And so when you asked if I'd be on, I said, sure, man, let's roll.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for hopping in. I'm really glad that you'd be here. And the reason why I wanted to pick your brain a little bit is because you have a very unique business model.
Mm,
So I know that you are into the IP space, but
yes.
now you're doing it in a very modern way where you use blockchain to make sure to protect other people's intellectual property. Could you tell me more about that? What was the history behind that? What was the inspiration?
Sure. So yeah, right now, the USPTO, the United States Patent Trademark Office, they are massively behind. There are 800,000 patents behind. It used to take 1 to 3 years. We're hearing rumors it may take 8 years to get a patent produced. And with the explosion of AI, with the explosion of tech, who can wait? I mean, you cannot wait. I mean, imagine if Uber started and they said, "Oh, we got to wait 8 years for a patent." Like technology would have gone by them. So all intellectual property means is it means an intangible asset. So when you think about assets, you usually think about like literal physical phones or cars. That's the old way of thinking of assets. But the S&P 500, which is the 500 most valuable brands, now, since 2020, 90% of the value of all companies in the S&P 500, 90% is in the intangible, i.e. the intellectual property. So we're talking about, let's just take Apple for a moment. Only 10% of the value of this is the phone. The other 90% is in the Apple logo, it's in the technology, it's in the way that
The
the
OS and all that.
operating system, all that stuff. So that's amazing. And if people are kind of interested in this, you might even think about like Play-Doh. Play-Doh has trademarked the smell. Okay, so the smell of Play-Doh is technically intellectual property. The Nike
I've never
sweat.
heard that before.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You ever hear of John Deere? You ever hear of John Deere tractors?
No, 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 no.
Okay, well, it's this tractor in America that's green and yellow, and they've trademarked the colors. And you might be like,
Whoa.
how can you trademark a color? Well, the reason, I mean, sounds are trademarked. Recently, what was her name?
Taylor Swift?
Katy Perry. Katy
Very,
Perry.
very.
Katy Perry got sued because she stole a certain beat and melody and this type of thing. So it's crazy what can be protected. But think about it for a moment. If that John Deere tractor, if somebody went online and filmed a copycat tractor that was green and gold and they said, this thing's crap, it doesn't even work. It's unsafe. You can imagine that would be brand damage to the company. So that's why they have to protect these things as well. So I know that's a lot, but we can get into blockchain and why that's the cooler solution. But you tell me what you want me to
Yeah.
jump into
So
that?
yeah. So the reason why is because Web3 is kind of like a modern thing, and
Yes.
a lot of people still kind of don't trust. Well, yeah, they don't trust it because it's not as tangible as Web2 as well, right? Because Web2 before it's like, oh, you could actually send an email. You send me a message, I receive it all the way across the globe. But Web3 still doesn't have like this really tangible result that be like, okay, this is the future. And
Mm.
what's interesting is that you are kind of paving the way for that because like now we could use it for intellectual property. So I'm curious, how did that come up? Like, how did you realize, we can actually use blockchain?
So I got a book in the back there called Blockchain Life. I wrote that book. A lot of times when I see a solution coming, I'm going to show your audience this. I know that it's a podcast, but maybe they can see what I'm about to show as well. And you might like this. Do you see this right here?
Right, I see it. Yeah.
This is from the book, but it basically says Web 1, which which I was a young kid in Web 1. And Web 1 basically said they create, they own. So in other words, like Domino's Pizza would create a website, they own the website. And you look and see different ways of understanding Web 1. It was like a desktop computer, username, password, this type of thing. Well, along comes Web 2, and now we start logging in with our Facebook logins or our Gmail logins. The Web 2 says that we create, they own. So now you start seeing like Toyota saying, hey, go post your picture of you with your Toyota and tag us. Well, guess what? They would scrape all of the content that we created. I mean, when you went to Facebook, they would own your videos. When you go to YouTube, they own your stuff. And so with Web 2, people began to say, whoa, what the heck? We're doing all the work, but they own it all. So along comes Web 3, that is the creator economy, that says, you create, I create, I own. So now you have these big companies that are saying, oh my gosh, Nathaneal, you're crushing it. Can we license you? Like you own your stuff. Can we tap into it? So now you're seeing like Taylor Swift as an example. Taylor Swift is an IP company, and that's actually one of my books. One of my books now is called You Are an IP Company. And, a lot of people think, oh, Taylor Swift's a singer. No, she's not. She's an IP company. She has 300 trademarks. She's re-recorded all of her music. Even her cats have been trademarked. Because
Really? Her cats are trademarked.
Cats are trademarked. Isn't that crazy? Because Taylor Swift does not want people to make money off of her ideas. You see, because otherwise people could come out with all kinds of shirts with her Swifties, like
Yeah, and
all
then sell
that
it.
stuff,
Right.
is what she created. So what she does is she rushes to then think of IP protection as a fence. Okay. If you have a house and you have no fence around your yard and you leave your iPhone out in the yard, someone's going to come by in certain neighborhoods and they're going to steal it. But what you do is if you put a fence around your yard, that's IP protection. Now, I'm going to show you another little chart here. This is from my new book, You Are an IP Company. And what this is pretty cool. This is going to show you that there are multiple ways to think of fences, okay? But patent is a very expensive fence that takes $30,000. It gets rejected 88% of the time, and then you need to pay more money. It takes 1 to 3 years, but we just learned that there was that big backlog of so patents are very slow and friction. Trademarks, there's a 12 to 18 month wait. If you have a lawyer, it's $3,000. Copyright is 2 months, $500 with a lawyer. I wanted to create something. I started to study blockchain, and I'm like, oh my gosh. A side benefit of a blockchain is that smart contract is it creates a timestamp. And the timestamp can never be changed by you, me, or anyone. You'd have to hack 51% of the computers in the world to change the smart contract time it was created. So I said to myself, whoa, I'm a publisher for books. There's got to be something here. So it took me a lot of years and a lot of money to figure out, wait, there's something here. And what I decided to do was create a technology that the moment you think of an idea, you pull out your phone, you take a picture of it, or you enter text, or you upload a file, you press a button, it creates a smart contract in less than a minute. And then nobody can ever say, Nathaneal, I thought of it first. So it creates that timestamp. And now there's this thing in the intellectual property world. It's crazy. There's this thing called prior art. So if somebody tries to patent your idea and they discover that there was something already out there in the world that talked about your idea, that's called prior art. And it can take down a $30,000 patent. So now yeah, isn't that crazy? So now I've given creators this technology that basically the moment they could, I got a whiteboard right here that you can write on that whiteboard with your friend an idea, and instead of saying, well, let's call a lawyer, well, let's meet with them, well, let's pay 30, now you just whip out your phone, you take a picture, boom, press a button. Now it's a smart contract. The whole world can see it. Or we have this button that allows you to hide it. And what that means is there's a strategy there called a trade secret. So here's the app, and here's my protected ideas, and it's instantip.app. We give everyone free a smart contract to try it. They can try it. And we see people all the time now that are protecting their ideas, and then they can decide later on, do we want to go to the next level and do a
Right.
trademark or a
And do
patent?
the patent, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can still do that, but now you're not saying, oh, we got to wait, months or years or raise all this money. Now because here's what the IP lawyer is going to ask you. When you go file a patent, they're going to say, when was the first time you thought of this?
Mm,
And usually people are like, oh, it's on a Post-it note that I wrote somewhere. And that's very hard to prove. Instead, you just say, here's my instant IP smart contract. And they're like, I can't debate that.
right. Yeah. That's a very, very, very great idea, especially now, like as we do go to a creator economy. I'm curious though, like what is it that you envision the company would be? Like what was your mission? What's your vision
Yeah.
moving forward?
Well, it's mainly for my authors. That's how it started, because a lot of people are stealing authors' books. I mean, even OpenAI says that they're scraping and training all kinds of people's copywritten material, and they're training large language models. So you live in this world today where the creator's actually the one getting screwed. And yet they're the ones who are coming up with the idea. Why should a big corporation just say, well, we're going to steal every author? So I had something, Nathaniel, last fall where I had spent over a year doing a TEDx talk, studying for it, training for it, paying a coach, writing the speech, practicing for months. And then I do this TEDx talk on blockchain and how it's the future of intellectual property. Then 2 months ago, I go online and I start Googling some of my speech because I was like, hey, where's my speech where I talk about abracadabra? And all of a sudden I find this article, and it's my exact TEDx talk in an article. And
Yeah.
I start looking and I say, oh my gosh, what the heck? I don't even know this guy. His name was Sergio from the country of Georgia. So I send him a message and I say, first of all, if this ever happens to you, screenshot it. Because the moment you contact somebody, they could have good motives, they could have innocent motives, but the moment you contact them, they'll try to take it away. Okay.
Yeah,
And you
edit
don't
it
know
and
what
stuff.
they've done with it. So I screenshotted it and I said, hey, Sergio, my talk is on protecting intellectual property. You stole my intellectual property. What's the deal, man? And I posted this on LinkedIn. I kind of called him out, not to embarrass him, but I'm like, and then he went on LinkedIn and apologized to everybody. And he said, oh my gosh, we just hired a social media company to write articles for us. They are using AI. AI must have stolen it and not credited you.
Oh,
But then he said, I'm immediately taking it down and I apologize. And I said, no problem. I said, see, like, I wasn't trying to be a jerk to him, but think about it. I mean, he could have turned this into a whole business. I do have 2 patents behind Instant IP. Like, this is my one idea where I'm building all the fences because
yeah.
it's so important. Like, there's a time where you're going to come up with an idea that's so important that you want more than a smart contract. The smart contract, I've talked to I haven't talked to thieves, but I've studied thieves. What thieves do when they steal is they drive by a house, and if nothing is warning the thief, they'll tend to steal from there. But if they have a little sign that says dog inside, if they have a security camera on their garage, if they have a light that goes on with a motion detector, or some have a literal fence, the thief says too much work.
Right.
They just say, I'm going, too much work. So what we
Mm.
do is we basically give all of our IP, instant IP users, I'll show you, this is pretty slick. We give them a, you're going to like this. This is a real example here. So watch this. We'll go screen. I'll hit window. All right. You see this little slide here? I'll read it
Mm.
for everybody who's listening. So our speakers, when they get on stage, they're sharing really, like, I just came from a conference. Okay. In the room, there's competitors, there's clients, there's, so when you're speaking on stage, you see people taking out their phones and taking pictures of your slides.
Mm-mm.
So now our speakers stand up and they say, "Hey, before I speak today, I just want you to know that you have my permission to take pictures. You probably would have done it anyway. But everything that is in my presentation is protected by blockchain technology using smart contracts. So any usage or reproduction without my written permission is punishable by law. Let's get started." Okay. And what it does is, right? What do you think it does, Nathaniel, to people?
Well, it's kind of scary. Like when you say it's like punishable by law. Like, oh, okay, I just keep
So
it by myself.
I'll tell you what it does is it creates this respect. Think about it. If somebody respects their property, you respect it. Like if somebody walks in, like, what do you do with rental cars? Most people do not respect rental cars because they're like, well, I paid for this thing, or Airbnb, I paid for this thing, so I don't care. But when you own something, or when you sign something that says you have to pay if you break it, all of a sudden you start taking care of it. So by starting a talk and saying, I care about my ideas and I've protected it through blockchain, and here's the QR code that you can scan, everybody in the room is like, dang, this guy Nathaniel, he takes stuff seriously. And what it does, Nathaniel, is it raises your rate. So we've seen this happen. People in the room are like, whoa, what this guy's sharing is actually really important. I'm gonna listen up more. Isn't that crazy?
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you've
It's
seen
the
this
same.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like connected to your idea of a house and the fence as well. Because when a house is like it's built well, it has security, it has the fences. It'd be like, hey, I can welcome you to my house, but just be aware that like if something happens, there's CCTVs here, there's like
Yeah. Yeah.
sensors here, and people just be like, oh, okay, and they
Yeah.
become respectful of the place.
Right. But if somebody like takes a beer bottle and chucks it on the carpet, you're like, oh, all right. Like you don't care about it either then.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this technology is really cool because what we did is I try to tell people it's the Uber of IP protection.
Yeah.
So what I mean
What
by
do you
that
mean by
is
that?
like, yeah, before Uber, you're probably too young, but like before Uber, it was crazy. You'd have to stand on a curb, you'd have to like wave at a taxi
Yeah,
driver,
whistle.
whistle, maybe they would stop, maybe they wouldn't. You'd have to call them, wait for 40 minutes. We call this in the business world friction. The more friction you have, the less happy you are. This is why people don't like waiting at Disney like for hours. It's friction. Why do they pay for a fast pass? Because they get in right away. And so the Uber disrupted taxis. Uber said, hey, the concept is still cool, but like it's too much friction. So now you go out, you press a button. They know that you scale trust super fast. You go into a stranger's car, that you're going to get there safely because it's all vetted. The whole system's vetted. Same thing with Airbnb. I mean, if you would have told people 30 years ago, you're going to sleep in some stranger's bed at their house, you would have been like, what are you talking about? Okay. But what they did is they disrupted the hotel industry. Well, what we want to do is disrupt the IP business, which is really run by the government. Now, you might be like, well, what does the government think? The government's actually had me talk to them because they realize there's friction. They realize, like, if people have to wait 8 years for a patent,
Just to start their business, right? To be
America's
secure
gonna
enough.
go America's gonna go under. 8 years is like a lifetime in the tech business. So so now the government's like, whoa, smart contracts. They had a whole panel, and I was one of the speakers. So my big dream, honestly, Nathaniel, is for the government to be like, look, we're still going to keep patents, trademarks, and copyrights, but we're going to
Mm,
move everyone faster through the line because we have a footprint of where they've
mm.
been through smart contract.
Right. So the goal really is to be the, as you said, the Uber. You can just book now, right?
Book now. Like you're in a room with a friend and you're like, let's name our podcast this, and let's
Hmm.
have a handout like that, and let's have an upsell like this, and let's just take a picture of all of it and upload it in 1 minute to Instant IP. Might cost you $97 a smart contract, but you're off to the races making money while the other person's calling an IP lawyer and saying, hey, can we book in 3 weeks with you because you're so busy? Like he seems my coach Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, he says that the number one thing an entrepreneur needs is to protect their confidence. And if you feel like everyone's going to steal your idea, your confidence, you don't tell anybody about your idea. You've seen this happen where people are like, oh, I got an idea, but I can't share because they
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
feel confident that it's going to be safe. So we want to give people that first fast layer so they keep iterating.
100%, 100%. So one question that I'd like to ask is, because like the IP, it protects you. You can use it by law to like, if someone plagiarizes your stuff. I'm curious though, how would this play out in terms of international, especially now? Like I'm right now, I'm from Philippines. I'm
Yeah.
across the globe, and
Yeah.
like, what if everyone is like interconnected? Someone plagiarizes your stuff, and the other side. How do you still protect yourself and use this?
So back to that chart, the USPTO with the trademark, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Patents, trademarks, and copyrights are only United States,
Mm,
meaning Europe has their own, South
mm,
America has their own. Like it's very jacked up. And there is this thing called WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, but it gets crazy expensive. So just because you file patents in America, then you have to go file them in other countries and other countries and other countries. And then it all comes down to this little slogan that says that the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, is not an enforcement agency. And so what that means is that even though they give you the fence, they're not going to tell anyone you can't cross the fence. You have to have a
mm,
lawyer fight you and take you to court. So the cool thing about Instant IP is that it's global. So blockchain is in every country, every device.
mm,
So now you might say, well, Kary, are people just going to listen? Maybe. But here, you're not in any worst case. The other situation is that you actually can't fight it because it's not protected in that country.
right.
The beauty of ours is that everybody who does a smart contract gets a cease and desist letter. So the moment you protect it, it spits out this thing, Nathaniel, that says, we call it a superscript IP. You've seen the TM or the R.
Mm,
So
mm,
it spits out a superscript IP that's called a certification mark. We file that with the government. And what that's saying is that it's telling the world, yeah, it's right here, over here, that superscript IP. So it's unlike the little R, the R's fine, but that's going to cost you a ton of money and a ton of time. This spits this out in 60 seconds and it says you own the certification mark. And now you can basically send that cease and desist letter with the smart contract to
mm,
anybody who's infringing and say, look, here's the proof, here's the timestamp. Do you want to go to war with us and fight and fight this? Will somebody listen? They might not. They might not listen to you if you have a patent either. You're
mm,
in no worse situation. But what it does is that public shaming thing, Nathaniel, that's a pretty
right.
big thing. Like that Sergio, because think about it. Sergio is a filmmaker in Georgia, the country of Georgia. You can Google him. All right. But anyway, he doesn't want his brand to have a bad reputation. Because if he gets the bad reputation, if you work with Sergio, he's going to steal your stuff. His whole
Mm,
business is going to go down.
goes down.
You see? So people are very concerned about brand integrity. If they're going to stick around, if they don't care about, if a thief doesn't care anyway, they're not going to care even if you have the law running after you.
Right. Yeah. So it's actually even better though, because it's, again,
It's
as you said,
global.
you actually have a chance
It's
because it's
global.
global.
It's every device on the planet. I'm going to go to instantip.today. That's the main website, instantip.today. And it's slash protected. Watch this. This is pretty slick. I'm going to show you this. And you can see, I know we got like 2 minutes here, but you can see on the website all the different people that are protecting the different, look at this, people are protecting their charts, their graphs.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? Now, these are the people who went public with it. You can also hide it if you want to
okay.
keep it a trade secret. You see, some people want to protect it and they're
Right.
like, I don't want anybody to know. And then let's go on the internet. Mark C. Winters, verified IP. And then look at this. He protected it on March 7th at 3:04 and 31 seconds. You see? So now we can
Yeah.
essentially fight and say who was there first. Pretty slick.
It's amazing. Well, this conversation has been very helpful. Like, I learned a lot, and
I'm going to send
I'm
you
going
the
to
audio.
explore this more.
I'm going to send you the audiobook and the ebook, and
Oh,
you
I'd be
can,
happy.
yeah, you can take a
Yeah.
deep dive, listen to it. And the book's everywhere on Amazon. You Are an IP Company. That's like the first step for people to really understand it.
Yeah, I think this is really helpful, especially for creators where we're like, we're modern day artists basically. We're like
Yes,
Plato trying to IP our sense.
and there's a
So,
term out there called steal like an artist, and that actually hurts the community. Like if
mm,
everyone's out there stealing everybody's stuff, it doesn't promote community, it doesn't promote collaboration, it makes everyone your enemy. So
right.
the way we're gonna work better in the world is for everyone to own their stuff, respect the stuff, but then if they want, license or share the stuff.
Gotcha. Right. So if people want to connect with you, learn more about IP, learn more how they can explore this, where can they see you? Do you have any upcoming events?
Yeah. So I would say we're actually going to certify people on this pretty soon. So you're going to see IP advisors all over the place. So people might want to get certified. But yeah, instantip.today, instantip.today is the website that explains everything. And then anyone can get the app. We don't put it on the App Store because we don't want the App Store to get in the way of your ideas. So it's Instant IP, and it's a web app. You can find it computer, tablet, phone, anywhere.
Gotcha. And your handle is
So it's usually
on
my
X?
name at Kary Oberbrunner. Also, my TEDx, encourage people to check it out. It's been viewed a million times, but it's just Google me, Kary Oberbrunner TEDx, and that in 15 minutes you'll be like, I see how this all works.
Yeah. All right, I'll link that down below. And it was fun having you. It was really insightful. I really appreciate your time, Kary, and see you soon.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
Cheers.